So we're now at the autumn of 1937 turn in Axis empires. So this is August and September of 1937, and we begin with the a new strategy card for all of the factions. So the Axis has chosen German rearmament. And I have a picture here of the card and some of the effects on it. But the historical event is that Germany repudiates the Versailles Treaty. And there's actually a historical quote on this card, which is by Werner von Blomberg, which he said, "The politically fluid world situation, which does not preclude surprising incidents, demands constant preparedness for war on the part of the German armed forces." So as you can see in the card, this is one of those cards that has a prerequisite. So this card cannot be played unless card number 1, the Goering Works Established, has also been played. So that has to be played as a prerequisite. And the other requisite is that you can only do one rearmament turn per year. So this card also, if it's played, you have to remove a few cards. That's on target here, but the force pool gets a lot of additions because of the rearmament, and you can see the North headquarters is added along with 7 other armies going right into the force pool. And then during the replacement segment, you can see the Axis will get 1 panzer and 1 infantry step directly on the map each turn. So that's basically what happened there. The Allies also select a new strategy card, or they reveal one, and it is British rearmament. And again, this card has a requisite. You need to have played the change of governments cards ahead of time, which we had. And of course, as a rearmament card, it's only allowed 1 per turn, per year. So this card adds a bunch of units to the force pool, 6 armor units, as well as the British Expeditionary Force and the Home Surface Fleet, and a convoy marker. So this is a powerful card for the Western Allies to play, and there is a historical comment on here that Britain is accelerating rearmament, and then a quote from Neville Chamberlain: "In war, there are no winners, but all are losers." So again, we have some wisdom from Neville Chamberlain, and that's not usually what we hear from him. Then nothing else is really done. The Soviet Union plays a strategy card. They choose political purges, and this card forces the removal of a number of other options later on. There's nothing else on this card. It's kind of like a card to pass the time. But there are a couple of notes on this card. One is that this is demonstrating Stalin unleashes the Yezhovchina, or the Great Purges of 1937 and 38, and this time it's directed toward the party members, not the military. And there's a quote on this card from Stalin: "Education is a weapon whose effects depend on who holds it in his hands and at whom it is aimed." Interesting quote from Joseph Stalin. That's all that really happens on the Totaler Krieg map. So we're going to now take a look at what's going on in the Asia-Pacific map. So we start with the Japanese, and they selected a strategy of diplomatic overtures. And so, this basically represents political maneuvering. They want to negotiate, and there's a political events table on this card that we roll a 6-sided die on, and I ended up rolling a cabinet crisis. So, which leads me to another table, and I roll on the cabinet crisis table, and basically the crisis is averted. So somebody must have intervened in the nick of time. So nothing. It's basically a no event from this. However, during organization, the Japanese Second Army returns to full strength, and you can see that in my picture here at Sen Sin. The Second Army is depicted there in the red in the middle top of the picture. Also, the 11th and 12th Armies march to Nanking, and you can see that at the bottom of the picture. Well, you see the 11th Army, but underneath it is the 12th. And that's really all that the Japanese do during this turn. The Western faction reveals their strategy. It is the quarantine address policy. And regarding this quarantine, we have a quote from FDR where he said, I am inclined to think that this is more Christian as well as more practical than that we should go to war with them. And of course, he's talking about the quarantine rather than war. But the reality is that the Brussels conference fails to challenge the Japanese. And it's kind of like a political move here. So I have a political events table. I roll the die on this. It's the 6 possible die roll results, and I ended up getting cabinet crisis. So I had to roll on another table, another chart for the cabinet crisis, and the result is a communist China is now at war with the Axis. So the implications is that now that the nationalist Chinese and the communist Chinese are kind of, bedfellows against the Japanese. And what you see in the picture here is the nationalist Chinese are in the light blue, and you've got the communist Chinese are in the olive green with the red markings. And that's basically what happens this time. You can see the third war zone forms in Wuhan, and then it marches toward Nanking. Then we go to the Soviet faction's turn, and they reveal their card. It's aid to China. So they launch Operation Z, which is put into effect to send military aid to China's nationalist government. So there ends up being a replacements in Kansu, and then in the picture you can see the 13th war zone is formed in Lanchao, and then it moves to the right side of the map. You can see it deployed there at the edges in, I think it's Yenin, but I'm not sure. Anyway, that brings the this August-September 1937 turn to a close, and we'll continue with the next turn in this season. So we go back to the European map, and it's September, October of 1937 now, and there's not much happens here. It's mud for one thing. There isn't going to be any campaigning, of course, and the mud's going to have no effect on this game turn. The Spanish Civil War continues, but it's a stalemate. Nobody's played any strategies to it, so nothing really happens there. But the Germans are not idle. They're focusing on rearmament, so they add the 2 units to the map. The French are just watching the changing scenery, and the Soviet Union continues to purge its thinkers, but there's nothing to do with this strategy. It's just a placeholder. We go over to the Daisenso map. It's September, October of 1937 still, and the Japanese make diplomatic overtures again. That's their strategy, so they're rolling on the political table, and it takes them to the strategy board, and then they get sent, military aid, which is sent to Manchukuo. So there is a colonial unit sent to Mukden, and there is a troop convoy during this turn sent to Darien, and you can see the Kuomintang army marches toward the Chinese nationalists. The Western Allies also are doing political moves this turn, and they roll on their table. They get a cabinet crisis, and then roll on that table, and they get an international incident. So that has effects, And as a result, the Chinese nationalists receive an additional replacement. So the Hopa First War Zone forms in Taiyuan, and you can see them in the purple on the map, the First Army group there. And the Chinese forces end up moving eastward to Tevend against any Japanese attacks that might be forthcoming, particularly from the Second Army. Not shown in the picture, during the Soviet faction turn, the Chinese communists also advanced toward the Japanese in the east as well. And that brings this season, the autumn season of 1937, to a close, and I thank you for watching.